Hello. So, on my last video on how to draw poses, someone left an interesting comment. They asked, well, they said, not a bad tutorial. I'll have to give this a try in drawing. But for me, I just can't figure out what to do with the body. Like, I have an idea, but just can't put the body in the shape or angle I want, if that makes sense. Lol. I thought it was an interesting, well, not question, but an interesting thing to say. And I could see that the problem would stem from maybe composition, maybe even anatomy, I don't know. But what this video is going to be about today is how to pose the body or how to make it look like an appealing pose. Different things you could incorporate into your drawing to make it stand out, make it look better. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to mention, and I'm sure everybody knows this already, is to use references, right? And don't like just find any reference. Not all references are made equal. Some references are better than others. So what you want to do is find something in the style that you want to do. So I want to do anime drawing, so I would choose anime styles and maybe even choose different types of anime styles for what I want to do, right? So out of all these three here, I would say the one I like the most is probably this one with the face. But this one's here is also nice as well, so I'll take that into consideration. But regarding how to pose the character, there are two things they want to keep in mind, which is balance, your balance, and perspective. So I'm gonna tackle the easier one first and then get into perspective, right? Because perspective can sound like a daunting word, but it's important to understand. So what is balance? I should be using a straight line for this. Balance. Balance is basically with regards to characters, you want them to be balanced because if they are not balanced, they'd appear like if they're falling over, like if they're uneven. Of course, you need to know the rules before you break them, and in some situations, you'd want them to be off balance, like if you purposely want them to look like if they're falling over, something like that. Like, for instance, this here, even though it looks like if they're floating, because they're floating, if I draw like a line through it, it still feels balanced. So, the best way to um achieve balance is to make sure the elements on each side of your, I guess you could say the spine line, the line of action, is equal to the other side. So what does that mean? If I, let's say, I'm not even following my own guide, but yeah, let's say if I put a character like this, right? We got a torso, the pelvis. This is not how I would usually draw it, but just a demonstration, right? So what would be a demonstration of good balance and a demonstration of bad balance? So what you want to do, just get a line straight through the center of the character. So what do you see? You see that it's not the same, but the elements don't need to be exactly 100% equal. Think about it like a scale. You don't want to tip the scale all the way over. Even if it's a bit off balance or even, that's fine. But you don't want to tip it all the way over because then it'll look unnatural. For instance, a demonstration of a bad pose, well, a bad balance. Let me actually make this a bit smaller. Whenever it would load. Computer is moving kind of slow today. Yeah, a demonstration of bad balance. Keeping this line in mind, if I put one leg going to the side here and the next leg going here, right? Oh, you can already see how imbalanced it is. Even if I try to balance it out with the hands, this is not a natural pose. That's not natural at all. So how do you fix that? You want to keep the elements close to equal. So I could have a leg out here, but I could also have a leg coming straight down here. Maybe even out here. Already on the floor, like if they're on the floor, this pose seems a lot more balanced, right? I don't know, put a little sword there, fantasy style, you know. They seem a lot more balanced than if than some like this, you know. That like if you look at this, it looks like if like they've been punched and they're going back. So this is an instance in where you want the character to be off balance if they are meant to not be in balance. But if you're drawing a normal pose, like a cool pose or something, balance would always be there. Now, what about perspective? Perspective is very important because anything you draw, like if you're trying to draw anime or anything like that, there's a form of perspective to it. We like to try and cheat it by, like, let's say if I draw that character, I'll just draw them straight on, you know? Just draw them straight on. But what this does, it basically kills any form of dynamism, dynamicness in your pose, right? So you want to keep perspective in mind. Now, if you're using Critter, I'm not sure what you may be using. I'm not sure if this tool is available in other programs. It probably is. You use this tool right here. This tool is a lightsaver, lifesaver. So let me show you. Come 2 point perspective. All of these pick through. Boom, boom. Look at that. I already have my perspective. And if you want to lock it, you have to take parallel ruler. What? Okay. Right, take parallel ruler, draw a straight line down. And now when you go over here, you have your perspective lines. And you can follow this to create proper perspectives. So how would you go about posing a character in this perspective? First of all, take into account the vanishing points. My own is quite high. These are quite high. The horizon line, this line is quite high. So what that means is anything at the bottom here, underneath the horizon line, you'll be looking down at. Anything at the top of the horizon line, you'll be looking up at. Let me show you. So look at this. I'll just follow these lines that have been made for me right here from the grid, right? If I do this, following this line that comes down like this, let me actually try and line it up. Boom, boom, something like that, right? Now, if I go to over the horizon line, would you look at this? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, that was quite horribly drawn. Wow. You look at that. It is actually, I'm still trying to follow those lines, the vanishing lines. Now it's above. You see what I mean? So that's the importance of the horizon line. But back to characters. If you want to pose them, let me actually make my brush a bit smaller. Let's say if I have a head right here. The head is about even with the horizon line, so you might not see top or bottom, right? Now let's put in the neck. I realize we are underneath the horizon line now, so we need to take that into consideration when we're drawing the torso. So look, I'm gonna, boom, it comes out like this, and it's still following those lines. Let me actually just put in a line action. So boom, go again, still following those vanishing lines, you see? And what I've done basically, I'm not gonna really go into how to draw the limbs. I mean, I kind of went through it in the first video, but it's whatever. So what you could see here is that because of the perspective, I'm looking up at the character, but the character's face is level with the, imagine if it's a camera watching the character, it's level with them. So that adds some dynamicness to the pose, right? So we learn about balance, we learn about how to make the pose more dynamic with perspective. But how do we incorporate them both together to make something look nice? Now, I wasn't really planning to do this, but I suppose I could attempt to draw this. Well, not obviously not draw the whole thing, but like the pose, keeping in mind perspective and all that stuff, right? It looks kind of like it's hard to see what's with these lines. I believe there's a way to make it vanish for now. What? My gosh. Boom, right? So looking at it, characters looking at us. Now where would the horizon line be? Well, think about it. We're seeing underneath the legs, and if you try to imagine this in a 3D plane, let me actually try and show it. Head, looking at the body, I could actually kind of tell that it's kind of facing upwards. It's facing upwards. So what does that mean if we could see the bottom of it? That means we are looking up at them. They are above us. So if they are above us, where would the horizon line be? It would be lower. It would be it would be lower, and the vanishing points as well would be lower. So let's try and attempt to do this pose. I wasn't really feeling to do any crazy amount of drawing today, but I suppose I can. So let's get 2 point. Let's put the perspective lines. I mean, yeah, this is fine. And parallel ruler. Yep. I don't really. What in the world is happening? I don't really like where these lines are. I think they're a bit too low. So I'll put it like this. Right. So we basically got that. Imagine like that's the horizon line. So let's look at the face. Again, we're even though we're looking up at them, we're not gonna see the bottom of the head because they are kind of looking down at us. You wanna keep that in mind. So let's just put in the head, the neck. So yeah, of course we're looking. The body's going this way, so I'm gonna try and mimic that like this, and then the legs like kick up like this. So let's try and mimic how it would be. Okay, I'm kind of doing a bad job at demonstrating this. I'm not really following the perspective. It's hard, even though it's easy to draw a box in perspective. If you want to twist the box and the box don't follow the perspective of like the perspective lines, it could be kind of difficult. You know, it's something to always work on. Circle. So if we're seeing the underneath of this box, when I went through how to draw the body, I'd say, oh, you draw a box like this, a box like this. But if you could see underneath the box, I think there would be like a little space. So you're gonna put a little space. I mean, we again, the power of digital art. We could edit that later if we want. Boom. Of course, we're looking up at it, and we're actually seeing the side of the body there. So I should actually change that. Looking at it now, because we're seeing this side. It'll be something like this, something like that. Okay, that's boom. I'm just doing this kind of fast so you'd get the idea. And now the legs going up and out. Even though I was talking a bit about perspective, I'm not gonna really go into how to do perspective of the what do they call it? Of the limbs and all that stuff. This is kind of small, yeah. I'm not going to do that. Something like that. And then the legs. Remember the V. Come out like this. Come out like this. The legs are kind of going like this, and then so, and it's going out so. So I'm pretty sure that the perspective of the legs is probably wrong, but it's just to prove a point here. I mean, don't gotta be perfect. It's just something you wanna keep in mind when you're drawing. Like even if your pose don't have a crazy amount of perspective, I'd still implore you to want to use the perspective lines because there's most likely going to be some, if the character is not just straight on looking at you, there is probably going to be some form of perspective. I mean, again, just like the video I did before, it's more of a focus on the torso because again, if you get the torso wrong, you get everything wrong, and the hands are easy to put in place. But I think it's important to actually try and find a way to make it so that every time you put the hand in a certain position, you'll be happy with how it is. Maybe that's what the comment wanted. They wanted to know how to place the limbs as well. So, of course, well, that is it. Draw from reference. I came out well with reference. If you don't like to draw from reference of drawings because you don't, maybe you are too lazy to credit them, or maybe you don't know how to find the actual creator of the art, you could, of course, just like reference real life. You could make your own poses, or maybe even reference other poses on Pinterest. Of course, giving them credit if if um if you use other people's references, right? But how about we just make a normal character? I much rather the other form of perspective, even though this one is bottom. A lot of anime, I've realized this. What in the world is going on here? Why is this happening? Okay, I'm just gonna have to delete them. Right, a lot of anime drawings, they would actually use the perspective with the horizon line is quite high and you're looking down at the character. You'd actually see that a lot. I mean, this one you're looking up at them a bit, but you'd also see where you are looking down at them as well. Like you see this a lot more. Like they got a big head, and you're looking up at them, kind of. So if that's the case, I'm gonna try and show how to actually, pose the limbs, make the limbs feel right. Because really and truly, what's important is that you keep the goal in mind and balance as well. What do I mean by goal? When you draw, you may feel tempted to just draw anything. I know I do that all the time. Like, just go in, I just want to draw, just want to draw. But it really is important to try and think about what you want to draw first before you actually draw it. They said they had problems posing the character, and where that could stem from is, of course, if you don't know what pose you want to give them. How would you know what pose you want to give them? You need to expand your visual library, taking in a lot of references, studying them, not just watching them, but actually studying them so you could use it and retain it so you could use it for later, you know. That's is important. I don't like this. It's important to do that. So here we got a torso. I'm just gonna join the torso. There's another point that I should honestly touch on before I continue, but I'll just join the torso for now. Again, not following my own tutorial, just from before, just plopping in a basic torso shape first. This is something I've learned. It's an actual thing. I think my art teacher, when I was in high school, they told me about it, and when I searched it up, I think it's called concha pasta. I don't really know what it's called, but basically, and I'm sure you've heard it before, when the shoulder line, you know, when the shoulder line is like this, you want to make the pelvis line like this. And you could kind of see it here, boom, boom. You could kind of see like that. You want to make them, well, concha pasta, I guess that's what it's called. You want to make them not parallel, basically. That's the important part. You don't want to make it like this. That is not as appealing, and this could lend you to make more interesting poses. Even when someone is standing up normally, they may lean on one hip. If you just want to make a character standing straight, then of course, then do that. If you're making a character sheet or something, but other than that, if you want to make interesting poses, always keep that in mind. Make them not parallel to each other. Don't do this. And basically what that does, let me show you. Let's put a box here. If I put a next box like this, there's only so much ways I could pose this, and it's not that interesting. Or if I do the opposite now, put put it like this automatically looks a lot more interesting, and you could find different ways to pose them. So you want to keep that in mind. Always make sure the shoulder and the pelvis line are not parallel. And this also applies like to other places. You could make sure that the headline is not parallel with the shoulder line like the box we have here. I mean, I have a parallel here, but it's fine. You can also make sure that it's not parallel. Like, let's look at this line like this, and they're kind of looking down like this. So not really the head, but more like the eyes, the position of the face, right? Like if the shoulders is like this, you might want to position the head like that. Maybe same with the feet. You could make sure each foot is not parallel to the other. If I so so I'm not gonna go so on. So unless if again not balanced at all. Just draw a line straight through the center of like the mass of the drawing. You'd see there's more stuff on this side than on this side. You want to balance that out. So even if it's still like that, even if there's more stuff on this side, it could still be balanced. Like if I just put down a foot like this, like maybe they're standing on a rock. That's again big sword fantasy. We love it. That's more balanced than if they were like doing what I was doing before this, unless if they're sitting or something. There's less balance, like when you need to do those type of tasks, like sit or something like that, because there's a lot more poses you could do, you know, like I don't know, maybe they're sitting on a chair or something. So remember to always make sure that what you're drawing, you have an idea of where you want it to go. And that's kind of what the when I showed my way of drawing, that's why I put in the legs as sticks first. This is not hard to erase. There's no commitment here. So if you don't like it, I don't like this leg, I could just put it up like this. I could just, you know, pose it. There's so many different ways to pose it with the lines. Like we don't draw from stick figures around here, but it's important to use sticks. Even in I do traditional art, and even in traditional art like portraits, that's what I do. You'd start with a sketch. You'd start with easy lines. Nothing is wrong with this. People may tell you, oh, you need to make sure you draw with the form, and that is true. But I would say you would probably want to do that when, if you're not experienced yet, when you're more experienced. Sometimes it could be better to stick with the basics. This is very easy to follow, and the legs could just be plopped onto it. So the person who said that they are having trouble posing the character, remember, when you're doing the shoulders and the pelvis, you don't want it to be even. You could twist it and whatever. Remember the perspective, right? We've put in a kind of perspective here. Also remember not to be too committed to what you're drawing. Well, at least the limbs, because I know the limbs could be kind of hard to get down. You could just, you know, I just think before you draw, think about what you want to draw. If you can't visualize it, I know some people can't visualize in their head what they want to draw. Just think or just say it out loud. I want to draw someone sitting. Boom. Just just think about sitting poses with the legs. You could even search up references on legs, how they look when they sit, and then put that in, you know. And once you do that, you say, okay, they're sitting. What are they doing when they're sitting? Let's say we got like I don't know, a chair or something here, right? What are they doing when they're sitting? You need to remember that's what you need to ask. What are the legs doing? What are the hands doing? So the main thing, what are they doing? They are sitting, they are standing, they are flying, they are swimming. These things they could be achieved, the look could be achieved with the legs. Now ask yourself, what are they doing while they are sitting, while they are standing, while they are, flying? They're sitting, I don't know, they're drinking like boba tea or something like that. Or I don't know. Again, big old fantasy. They got the sword. They got a sword resting on their shoulder, right? Like all these poses you could make just from those two questions. What are they doing and what are they doing while they're doing it? What are they doing? They're sitting. What are they doing while they're sitting? I don't know. They're thinking. I'm thinking. What could be going on here? Those arms are pretty wonky. But you get my point. Maybe they're just relaxing. Maybe they have their hands on the back of the seat. Maybe their hands are coming off from the seat like that. There's so many different ways to pose it. And I think a lot of people get caught up on, oh, the pose gotta be perfect. I need to make sure this is a perfect. No, you need to think about it like this. What you're drawing now is trash, and you need to make it not trash. Every drawing starts off as trashed, or at least not a finished product. A draft is never as good as the finished product. So you don't want to get hung up on how good the draft is. Of course, you want, when you're refining the draft, you don't want to be what they call refining a turd, which is the anatomy is wrong, everything is wrong, and you're just rendering that. It won't come out good. What you want to do is get it. The sketch could be trash, but you want to make sure the refined sketch, what you're doing after that, fixes the trash. One man's trash, another man's treasure type stuff. So we've kind of explored sitting a bit, but let's try and explore something else. I may even explore what to do if the character is unbalanced. Maybe you want to draw someone unbalanced. So boom. Well, that's not really. Let me. I gotta think of a way to unbalance it. I'm so used to drawing balanced poses. It seems weird. Boom. I mean, that is actually still balanced, unironically, because like the legs is half of the body. So like if we split this, it's kind of roughly the same amount. I'm not sure. No, this is so embarrassing. I don't know how to draw an unbalanced character. Hold on, give me a second. Let's see. There, that's how they are, right? This is, I mean, even this has some flow and some balance there, but let's pretend this is not balanced, right? Maybe, boom. What could make someone not off balance? I've already talked about falling, I've already talked about, let's, I don't know, they're swimming, but what if there's a third party element that is making them off balance? We've already talked about someone punching you, but what if you got a huge, again, fantasy, a huge sword, right? This your center of balance is no longer yourself. It's more like around here because this has its own weight. This is pulling you to it. And because of that, like let's say if you're drawing someone swinging a sword, there's gonna be a point in the swing. Maybe I should erase this. I'm just gonna try and come up with a pose while I'm talking. Maybe it's midway through the swing, they actually lose balance, When you are swinging a sword, when you reach the end, when you reach to the end of the swing, you could find yourself toppling over. A good way to visualize this, if you play like Genshin Impact or something, just use a Claymore character. You'd see what I mean. Almost all of them at the end of their normal attack string, they're off balance. As a, like for instance, Shinyan, when she hits down, like her leg goes up because it is forcing her down because the sword is that heavy. You need to keep that in mind. Whatever you're holding, if the mass is too great, it could make you fall over. I don't know. I'm trying to make up a pose here, but I don't really. I have I need to think like I need to think, you know, and it's hard to think and talk at the same time. Obviously, I'm not drawing a sword and sword. I mean, even still, like this, like I could like put a huge sword back here, like when Eula does her normal attack and she ends in that kind of pose. Like this sword is pulling this person back towards the sword. They're not gonna be standing up straight and then put back their arms. No, this flow that's going to the sword. You have to keep that in mind. The sword, the mass of it, and then the character is being pulled. This is not how someone would usually stand. Someone will usually stand up straight, but they're being pulled back towards the sword because they're holding the sword backwards. They're pulling it backwards, and when they fling it forward, their body. I'm kind of too lazy to draw it. Their body would go forward with it. There will be a flow with the sword, but right now the sword is backwards. So that's the flow they got right now. They are backwards, right? And even though that is the case, they are still balanced, but they could be off balance. Again, gonna see how I can make this off balance. I suck at drawing things off balance apparently, but we'll try. We'll try. So this is an off balance. This now looks like if they're in the air and they are swinging the sword at you, right? So I hope what I've said today helps helped you to understand how to draw a character, like how to pose them properly. The arms and the legs, people get way too caught up on. They're thinking, oh, I gotta make sure the arm and the legs are perfect. But no, what you want to make sure is you got the perspective down of the character. Think about the scene they're gonna be in, and make sure their balance is, well, off balance or balance, depending on what you want. And for the limbs, of course, just drawing sticks. Think about what you want to draw. That's something to remember. What do you want to draw? Like what are the character doing? They are sitting. What are they doing while they are sitting? Their hands are full, they're mad. What are they doing while they're sitting? They just had a brilliant idea. They just had a brilliant idea. That's how you want to pose the character. You don't want to think, oh, I can't pose them. Remember the balance, remember the perspective first, and then these things will just come with it. If you don't want to draw a normal sitting character like this, just search up a reference of different ways of how to sit. If you don't want to draw them like just having the arms, set up different ways of sitting on a chair. Maybe they're like this. Maybe one hand is like this, maybe one hand is like this, hands up or something like that. They're talking to someone. There's so many different ways to draw one pose, to just draw one sitting pose, to draw one standing pose, to draw one flying pose. There's so many different ways to draw it. And you want to keep that in mind. Just don't overthink the legs, don't overthink the arms. What you want to remember is what are they doing, what are they doing while doing it. Remember perspective, remember balance, remember this thing, the contrapasta. Make sure they're not even. This one is kind of even, but if they're relaxing, it could be even. If it's just a straight character, it could be even, because when it's not even, there's more interest. you know Symmetry is the destroyer of interest. That's something you want to keep in mind. Don't make the characters symmetrical unless if that's what you're going for. You know, like I said, even though there's a balance line, like let's say this is head, torso, blah blah blah. You don't want them to just be standing up straight. Even though it's perfectly balanced, you'd think, oh, that's a perfect pose. Well, no. Well, there is no perfect pose, but you want interest to be there. You know, you want there to be some sort of interest. I don't know, maybe they're hitting a volleyball or something. You don't want both legs to be doing the same thing. They could, like again with the sitting pose, but there are other ways to draw it, and it could be more interesting. I don't know how to draw that kind of full legs that ladies do. I need to practice that. But yeah, there are other ways to draw it. So I'm kind of yapping right now. So I'm gonna end the video, but I hope this helped because this is actually a really important thing to know. But you know what? Before I end the video, this video is probably already very long. I don't know. I have not been timing myself. Before I end it, let me. Which one should I try and draw? I will probably try and draw this. You know, I'll try and demonstrate it. Luckily, the perspective, you're kind of looking down at them. Head, shoulders like this. It's not even with the head. Shoulders, they're kind of going like this. Boom, 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 boom. You draw in the torso. The legs, just lines, just any line, The arm, again. Well, I like to make a circle here, but a line. The arms, line. You see, you can already see what it's gonna be. So try and visualize it. Just plop in the arms, pop in the legs, in a way that achieves balance, a way that is perspectively sound. Perspectively, I'm sure that's not a word. But yeah, like try to remember that. I'm not gonna really focus too much on the anatomy here. Again, the video is already probably like 5 billion years long. So I'm just gonna try and do this really quick. hmm Even though both legs are um kind of going in the same direction, again, just draw a line straight through the character. See if the balance is really sound. I mean, up here should be honestly like more twisted. Well, no, it should be like, oh my gosh, should be something like this, right? This looks so weird. Let me actually try and fix this. Not the pose. Um, just how I drew it. By the way, this is just in case if anyone thinks that, oh, that's his drawings. He's just no. These aren't my drawings, my guy. These are definitely not mine. I'm nowhere this good. I want to be this good, but I'm not there yet. But yeah, gonna keep that in mind. So of course, remember, if you don't know what you want to draw, if you are really stumped, like if you ask yourself what are the character doing, what are they doing while doing it, and you still don't know what to do, just find a reference. There's don't don't get yourself killed for your pride. Just really find a reference, find something that you like. If it could be a study, or you could just take elements from it. Okay, I know I've been yapping for a bit, but this is really gonna be the last thing I'm gonna talk about. Oh, you know what? I'll show it here, just to make it faster. Like yeah, find elements like this. Like I like this character pose. The arms don't need to be the same. I've already said you could change how the arms are. You could really do so much with it. And the pose is already reading differently. If you really cannot find a pose to draw your character in, like if you really can't pose them and you really don't know what to do, find a reference, copy, not trace, copy the reference to the best of your ability. This ain't the best of my ability, by the way. And like change one or two things about it. The arms and the legs change so much by themselves. Look what I've done with the arms only. Like I've not changed the pose at all. Again, love the big fantasy swords, right? This is so much different from this, you know? I don't know. Like, boom, boom. Again, fantasy sword. uh, this is so much different from that. Like, if you really can't find a pose of something that you really like this. Like, I like this. And just change one or two elements. Like, even if I have this hand here, like, okay, that's a bit extreme, but even if I have this arm here, I could do so much with this other arm, you know? I mean, I don't really know what kind of pose you could really do, you know? Like, it's already so weird. So, even like going behind the head, like, there's so many different poses. So, that's the last thing I want to talk about. If you really can't find a pose that you want to draw, even if you've done the perspective, even if you've done the balance, even if you've done the contrapasta, even if you looked at references and like find a reference you like, copy the reference exactly. Like if you really like this pose, that's something you want to copy it exactly. And then change one or two elements about it. Because if you copy the pose exactly and you copy everything about the image, it's just a study. And you shouldn't pass it off as your own work. You want to give them credit. But again, like you could do that, or you could combine two references together, combine the poses. All of that works. And I'm talking way too much. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, I'm not gonna say leave a like and subscribe. I'm not I'm doing this for fun. So I mean if you want to, leave a like and subscribe. It'll really help out. But even if not, I'm happy that you watched the video to the end. I'm happy that you've seen all this, and I hope what I've said helped. So have a good day. And it is raining. I hope that don't affect the audio. Oh my gosh.